to the fourth episode of the Philosophy Pupils podcast. I'm D.
I'm Guy.
I'm Bexasis.
I'm East Park.
I'm B.
I'm Trung.
And today we're going to cover Theseus' ship, a famous thought experiment on the concept of personhood, maybe most encapsulated by the question, what does it mean to be human? So the original problem of Theseus' ship, in case you guys have never heard of it before, was introduced by a Roman named Plutarch. The original theory was that Theseus, who was a hero in Greek mythology, eventually retired his boat, which was preserved by the people for generations. As the ship's parts began to rot, because inevitably some parts were made of wood and some got old, they replaced some parts of the ship that began to rot with new pieces, good as new, that were made out of the same wood as the original. And over the course of decades, eventually more and more parts got replaced, because as you know, no wood can stand the test of time, until eventually every part of the ship had been replaced with a new part. So the question then becomes, is the ship, as it is today in the future, generations after, the same ship as the one Theseus sailed on? Would you consider it to be the same ship when the parts have been replaced? What do you guys think?
It's a crazy question that's like everyone like has a lot of different opinions, but like I think like the spirit of the ship lives on, even though it's like not the same exact thing, because I don't think anything can be like really the same, because like I think there's like a thing like after like 10 years or something, every cell in your body is like replaced, because like every cell dies and like you get like new cells. So I mean, are you even yourself? So yeah, I don't know.
Which brings up the point that if a human, like when a human cell gets replaced, are you still you? For me, I would say I would think I'm still you, but technically most of my cells have been replaced. So what's the defining line between me and someone else?
So you think the ship might become like less of Theseus' ship over time?
In spirit, like what Bexasis said, in spirit, it would be the same, but in material, it's not.
Yeah,
So,
I think I agree with that.
So looks like right now we have two different interpretations at least. One is that identity is a bit of a class in which you can have, obviously even if a ship with new parts would still be considered within the class called Theseus' ship, right? So there's different forms that can be, physical forms that can be considered to be Theseus' ship. On the other hand, you might have a completely like a physical route, saying that the more you replace it, the less of Theseus' ship it becomes. So the instant you replace that first piece, it becomes less of Theseus' ship. So those are certainly two of the most popular interpretations. I personally I tend to toward the latter one. I feel like the latter one, in that if you replace a piece, it's less of the original ship, and if you replace all of it, I would almost consider it to be like a new ship.
But I feel like, say less of it, I feel like being something is you are it or you're not less. Like,
Yeah, you're it,
does that
but
make
like
sense?
different, right?
You it or you're not it.
But then, like, your name is the same and all that stuff. So, like, personally, I feel like because other people do call it the ship, like, then I'm also bound to. It still kind of has, like, that identity. Like, I think a part of identity is, like, your social identity, or, like, what people see you as. So, you know, that also kind of goes for it, like, even though all your cells are replaced, but, like, your name, like, by law or whatever, like, still remains the same.
So
unless
in
you
the case of the ship, it would be its social recognition as Theseus' ship, rather than like a new ship because its parts have been replaced.
Yeah.
So you still think it's the same ship, replaced over time?
According to, like, what society, yeah.
So whatever society defines.
Kind of, yeah, like a collective identity.
It only becomes less as you replace the pieces if you define that whole by its many parts. But like, just because you replace small parts of it doesn't mean that the ship is any less the same ship. Like, you have to replace them to keep it going and to preserve it. If you don't, it's going to collapse. Just like the human body, you have to regenerate new cells.
Oh, I want to go back to an earlier part, when we brought up the point that it's either 100% or 0%. So I just wanted to ask, like, what do you think would happen if it was like one piece replaced? Still completely? Or would you say the instant it's replaced a little bit, it's 0?
I think it's.
Or if there's one piece left, it's still 100. You know, which one?
See, that's interesting because, like, obviously there's some point in between, like, it stops being it. Because, like, I guess if it's just one thing replaced, it's still technically still the same thing. Because, like, if you ask anybody, it's
Like let's say you have a prosthetic arm. That's still technically one
Right.
piece replaced, but are you still you? I would say yes.
Yes? So just even if there's one little piece of the original ship left, then yeah, it's still original ship.
What's weird?
But at that point, you're kind of stretching it, right? Because
who
even
knows?
like just one piece of shard of wood, I guess that would.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel
Okay.
like there's some breaking point in between.
Okay,
That's
okay.
what I'm saying.
What if you get like a brain transplant? That's still one part, but like like there's like the idea of like which part you're replacing, like
Because I looked this up on YouTube, I think it was, but like if you a lot of your body parts will get replaced over your lifetime, but your neurons actually just stay the same.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you lose your neurons, you're brain dead. So your neurons actually are not replaced. So then I would bring up the question: do you think that changing the brain has more significance than changing other body
Yeah.
parts?
I remember this in class talking about like cloning, and like if you clone your brain and then you just like replace your brain, like let's say we're like 300 years in the future and you do that, are you still the same person, or like will the neurons like make a different person entirely? Like you don't know about that. That's a lot of yeah, and that goes with this like completely.
You bring up an interesting point because it reminds me of if we were to transfer our consciousness to, let's say, like a computer. There's lots of theories about that.
Oh, yeah.
So are you still the same person? If you were to transfer your consciousness into a computer, would you still be the same person because of the consciousness, or would you become an entirely different entity? Because
Because your physical components have
your
changed.
physical components are gone.
So you're literally you, but you're a computer. So are you still that same person? Well, you're not a person. You're a computer, but
just kind of a like we'll just go around the table a little bit, but like the original ship, once it's been replaced, if you had to do a yes or no question, so obviously this is splitting, right? Obviously it's a lot more nuanced than that, but if you had to say yes or no, what do you guys think about Theseus ship? If you consider it to be a new ship, or if you'd still consider it to be the original ship, or would you still consider it to be the ship of Theseus? I would side more towards no, but we'll just like go around. I just wanted to hear everyone's opinion.
I think if it was a yes or no question,
Yeah.
I would also say no, because all of its physical parts are replaced.
Okay.
So, and we're only talking about the physical aspect of it, and not like a social aspect of it, considering it as Theseus' ship. So I would say no.
I would say no too, because like it was like because like everything's replaced and stuff, but it is Theseus' ship. I would say that, but like it wouldn't like since everything's replaced, it wouldn't really be the same as the original ship. It's like really weird.
Yeah, I would say no, because even if we replace the physical part from the social identity part of it, like, sure, the social identity remains the same, but it's physically been altered completely, so you can't say it's completely the same shit.
So you just say, so you say the social identity is the same. Like, would you say its identity has changed?
Well, it depends on the side, probably, but if it's still known as Theseus' ship, the original ship he had, it could be pretty similar.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you're asking just like
Would you consider it the same ship?
just like physically only speaking, because I've heard just
It
everyone
depends on your definition of what you consider it. Like, you know what I'm saying? So this is the
Yeah.
question. What do you consider ship to be? What's that label
Yeah, on your
mean? What is identity?
definition.
Is identity defined by its physical parts, its social definition, its aspect of what a shipness is?
I feel like, as I've said before, I feel like I am gonna like define and just say yes, because I feel like not only is there just kind of like the social aspect of it, but then there's also just kind of like this essence. I feel we're in like, because something was this, then it still kind of remains that identity from the past, even when it's like kind of altered from it completely. Like it still had that identity, so it still kind of lingers on.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it was like, yes, it is the same ship, because like if you like, you're saying it's in a museum, so like if somebody came to a museum, then 100 years later, it's still same. It's still people calling it in the museum. They're still calling it that ship. So I feel like society, yeah, pretty much,
Okay.
and I think that would tie in with its identity.
I think like the reason why all of us are saying no and they're saying yes is because like we're putting like let's say if we change the question into like human and like saying like we change someone's brain, I think we would all
Different person, I would say.
but like I think we treat the ship as like differently from like human.
Human?
Yeah, and stuff like that. While they're putting more emphasis on like the value as just in general.
Yeah, because it's pretty simple, like just wood. It's simple, like. But if you talk about humans who are much more complex,
Oh boy.
Yeah.
that would
Speaking
definitely.
of humans,
Yeah.
Thomas Hobbes came up with a variation. So he said, regardless of what you interpret Theseus ship to be, imagine that some guy found the pieces that they threw away, the old rotten pieces of the original ship, right? Because they replaced it. They're like, he knew piece, old piece out. He found all the original pieces and reconstructed it
This one.
into a ship. Well, it's not much of a ship to look at, but it is made from the original wood. Now they're side to side. The museum ship and the ship the guy fished out of the garbage and put into a new ship. Which one is the original ship? Or would you say they're both Theseus' ship? Or maybe neither of them are Theseus' ship? I don't know. What do you guys
I can't
think?
do this one. I can't do this one.
It's been a long day.
Well, what do you guys think? Any thoughts? For the people who might have said yes, the original the ship in the museum is still Theseus' ship. Do you think the ship that the guy made out of the original wood pieces?
Well, I'm gonna be a bit annoying, but are they still gonna call it Theseus ship? Like, which one will people still call Theseus ship?
Oh,
The one in the
that's-
museum
yeah.
or the one
Yeah.
that
The
he
guy-
just made?
The guy made.
Yeah.
So-
So,
I would say people would recognize the one in the museum, not the one that the guy just randomly assembled from the old pieces of the ship, because the new one still has the identity of Theseus' ship, while the old one has lost the identity, even though it's made from the old parts. So, to bring it to the human analogy, like let's say your skin cells are falling off of you. Are they technically part of your body anymore?
And like this is pretty off the rails, but then when you guys are kind of like talking about the human, like if we're gonna compare the boat to a human, here's the thing: the human consciousness in a sense can still assert its own identity, but a ship can't. So I feel like I don't know if it's really kind of just like a nuance or it's just really off the rails, but then it's like another maybe like thing to consider.
Yeah. Okay. Theseus' ship has been one of the most famous thought experiments in philosophy history for good reason, right? Obviously, there's a lot of different points of view. A bit of a modern spin on it that I found was one known as and this is kind of almost of a real world issue, known as quantum teleportation. So the idea of teleportation that you could go from one place to the other instantaneously is most likely not going to happen in the future, right? At least in the near future. But there is a legitimate, well, not a legitimate, it hasn't been tested yet, but there is a theory of how we might be actually able to get humans to teleport. Not by teleporting the matter from one location to another. Imagine if you could, you step into like a capsule, it'll disintegrate you, so you're disintegrated, and in the other capsule, let's say in Asia, they have a big pile of like carbon, they have big piles of oxygen, hydrogen, whatnot, and they'll reconstruct your atoms in the exact same configuration that you were when you stepped into the booth. So we're assuming in this case, it's like, oh, this will go horribly wrong. We're assuming it goes right, so that like you would be reconstructed with the same materials in the same position. The atoms are perfectly arranged. Your brain perfectly right, because it's just at the end of the day, it's just atoms that you reconstruct. But it's not the atoms that you were when you stepped into the booth. The question is then, when you step out of that booth, are you still you, or are you not you anymore?
Wait.
Should we even implement this technology?
This might not be relevant, but where did your original atoms go?
They're
Yeah.
still at
They're
the
They're still there.
Disintegrated.
They're
They're
back.
disintegrated.
So they're just on the floor or something?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I bet,
Love
So,
that.
yeah.
so it's like, it's not teleportation the way we imagine it, but it would be like a realistic teleportation.
I think because you disintegrate, and then if someone wants to teleport to the place that you were originally at, they will use your disintegrated atoms to
Oh yeah.
teleport back. So that's a lot of wonky stuff. But I think this.
I feel like,
yeah,
isn't that just cloning then?
yeah. So
What is the human consciousness? Are we able to replicate the human consciousness?
Yes, we could say
atoms?
cloning.
Okay.
Yeah, quantum teleportation, cloning.
Okay.
So, but the
Anyway.
question is, are we able to replicate human consciousness
That's something we
in
don't
terms of
know.
atoms? Because we don't know enough about human consciousness.
Yeah.
Can human consciousness be represented by atoms? If no, then you are not the same person because you are missing your consciousness. But if yes, somehow your consciousness is preserved,
Yeah.
you might as well be the same person then.
Yeah.
the first person to test it we will determine.
Would you guys do it?
No, I'm
Let's
I
say-
would not do it.
Wait,
That's
no.
scary.
Okay, let's say the first, there's been people who've done it and it looks like it works. Like they talk like the guy who stepped into the booth. They act
That's
like
so
the,
scary.
because
That's
obviously you
so
can't
scary.
know for sure. And this is a whole different topic. But let's say they act like the person.
And
right?
they have the same
the
memories.
same reactions, same memories,
Okay.
Yeah, that's
seemingly.
crazy.
Well, you can't say for sure, but let's say, you know what I'm saying, just
Okay.
from your interaction.
Yeah.
Would you step into the booth to try it out?
Me? Okay. Sure, I'll answer. I don't think so, mostly because you're saying you don't know for sure what happened if it you don't
Well,
it seems like it worked.
It seems like it works.
So
right?
I feel like there's that gray area. There's something probably that happened. There's I don't know. Yeah, pretty complicated. But I
Let's
would
say
do it
if people were to act the same, I'd say screw it. I'd try it.
You would try it?
I would try it.
for
But then-
science.
For
For
science.
science.
And then I would lose my self of being. but then
Okay.
for science.
For science.
I think it would be because there would be some like cases of messing up, but then
Yeah.
like there's like car accidents and stuff, like person dies of car accidents, but like I guess it would be on the news, like something weird happened to someone because of the cloning transportation. But I wouldn't do it because I'm so conditioned to like the past and like. But if I was born and then it was a norm, I think I would be fine with it. It's just me being like conservative in those types of ways. Like,
Okay.
So that's why I wouldn't do it personally right now.
Similar answer. Like I wouldn't want to be one of the first ones who did it, but like
Let's say we know this works.
So if you knew it worked, then sure. But like, how would you even be sure if you didn't wait until let's say
That's a
after their death?
whole box of worms.
I guess you have to wait until the clones probably died to see if there were any
Oh, okay.
adverse effects throughout their life, because there could be like longer term things that you don't see right away, even if it seems like it worked.
Any interpretations?
Just a question. Would it hurt? It's like
Uh,
like that's like a question.
Oh, that's a good question.
like
I think this getting disintegrated would probably hurt.
Yeah, probably would.
Yeah,
and you'd probably remember, or the you that steps out of the teleportation pod would remember.
would remember
Isn't pain
it.
something you've experienced now? So like, if it's in the past, you don't really care
Yeah, you
anymore.
can't really.
Yeah.
I don't think you
'Cause-
can remember pain.
Cause like I don't
You can
care about the
remember.
time
I
I
think
burned
you
my
can
finger 10 years ago. Like,
Really?
that was, yeah,
I kind of
that was
remember
10 years
that.
ago.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Let's say you don't
Hypothetically,
feel the pain. Then
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Let's say. Well, if it did feel the pain, would you do it?
If you gave me money, yeah.
Thank you.
And I think that's a good point to stop off. Theseus' ship, one of the most famous thought experiments, and
And a couple of its variants.
yeah, a couple of its variants. So that was it for this episode. Hope to see you guys next time.